Hello and good morning. We are here streaming live on YouTube. And if you're watching this after it's been recorded, um, please feel free to leave any questions that you may have in the comments, and I can address them the following Monday, or I'll get back to you. And if you're here live today, just feel free to ask any questions. Asking them in the beginning of the class gives me an opportunity to address any of those questions in this time that we have together here. So I'll give you a few minutes to get settled and to type in any questions that you may have. We have about 30 seconds to get started. All right, so welcome to the class. And today we're going to be talking about sitting poses. So the three most important sitting poses that you can start doing and do for, this is a long-term goal here for these poses that you can do throughout your practice. And they are really a foundation to a healthy yoga practice. So I'll go into how to do these three poses and a little bit on why they're so important. Before, I'd like to just say something really quick about the format of these classes. So we have the classes on Monday, and it's a really great idea if you have the time to do these for that week. So we cover sitting poses or back bends or twists, whatever it is that we cover makes up all the components of a healthy practice. And so if you're starting out your practice, or if you'd like to incorporate these refinements on your own existing practice, then you can do Mondays. You start this concept and you carry it throughout the week. And at the end of the week, you end up having really good questions based on the experience that you've had working on these things throughout the week, so that you can progress. So it's a really nice way to start building your practice and to start improving. Okay, so I'll share. Okay, 1 second. Okay, coming soon. So I will be, all right, so we'll get started with sitting poses. So the first pose that we'll talk about, so I'm going to use some props here. If you don't have these props, that's okay. You can use, instead of blocks, you can always use books or magazines that you don't mind using for your yoga practice. You can cover them with a little towel or something like that, and they work just fine. For straps, if you don't have these yoga straps, it's more than fine to use, long silk scarves, or you can use a tie or anything like that. So here we go. We're going to start out by setting our clock. We usually do these classes in about 30 minutes. So I'll set the timer, and you come to your mat and just take a nice grounding breath here to arrive and start your practice. If you'd like to bring your hands to Namaste position, both hands together, you can just give thanks for the opportunity of being here and establishing this time for yourself. All right, so the first of these three sitting poses that we'll work on today is Upavistha Konasana. So this pose is where we just bring the legs out like this. All right, so sounds simple enough. Sometimes there's a lot of tightness here, and especially for a lot of our standing poses, we need this length. So this is a really great foundational pose that'll give you those tools so that you can make progress in your other poses as well. So it'll form poses. So if you want to start, just here is fine. Sometimes here it's enough. So we don't want to push this. So we, slowly we work up to coming out more. Okay, so find your angle where you are. So there's a saying that says, whenever you wake up, that's your morning. So you start your morning. So with this kind of pose, so get to that place. Once you're there, I'll show you here, you stay in the pose, and I'll show you usually what happens. So we come here to sit. You start really feeling it here, and we have to support the back, right? So if that's going on, we need to untuck the pelvis here so that we can sit. And if there's tightness in the hamstrings, what we do is you either fold a towel or a blanket, or you sit on a block. So you grab that block, put it behind you, and then you can sit on that block like this. So it not only untucks the pelvis, gives you a little height there, so it's not so difficult to come out into this pose if you're, anywhere that you may be here on this pose. And you can use a little bit more height also. So if that's not enough, maybe double it and see how that feels. Okay, and then you might need to support the knee if it's too high. All right, so here's Upavistha Konasana. So go ahead and find your props and adjust the pose so that you're sitting comfortably, being able to lift the body up here. Right, so you're not collapsing, creating that curve on the lower back. So I'll use a little bit of a height, come to my pose. And it's nice to stay here in the beginning, maybe 30 seconds is enough. As you progress, you can sit here for 1 minute, up to 5 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. So you can really spend a lot of time on this pose, which is great. You can watch your movies like this and start just receiving that length here. Once you're here for a few breaths, we're going to put the left hand in front of us, the right hand behind us. And you're gonna turn the right foot out, lean back, and lift that right leg. And then bring it down. And take a few breaths here. Okay. And then same thing on the left side, lift the left leg. And then you can tell which leg has a little weakness or more strength. Really push the heels out. And so how do we get to the point where this becomes a little bit easier, creating really strength in the little muscles around the rotators and everything? All right, so what we'll do is we'll use a belt here. So I'll show you how to start thinking about stretching the legs out in this pose, to start really working the pose, making the legs really strong, so that then you can lift the body here. So I'm going to use a belt, okay? If I don't have a belt that's long enough, just link 2 belts together. And I want to be able to tighten this from the outside in. So here, this belt, I wouldn't be able to do that. So I turn this buckle around, okay, so that I can pull and tighten on the outside of my leg. So I'm going to grab my belt. If you don't have a belt here, it's okay to do it without. Put my belt here, and I'm going to make sure that the belt is not around my waist, but around here, right in the crease here. I bend my knee a little bit, and then I tighten the belt. Okay, so belt, I have a lot of resistance in the belt, and I'm going to push through my heel here, and I'm going to straighten the leg. Okay, making sure it's not too tight. So I'm going to straighten the leg here, really lengthening the leg, creating strength in the leg. And now I notice that with this activity in the leg is very active. I can lift the back so much easier. So this releases any tension in the back, any tension in the groin here, and allows me to really work and improve in this pose. So I can put the strap on both sides, and I can work with both sides pushing the strap away like this. So this starts giving you the sense of, how do I work on this pose? So when we remove the belt, or the silk scarf, or whatever you have to create that nice tension so that you can straighten the leg. Then you do the same thing without the belt. So the intelligence in the body understands how to work in this pose. So here we push the heels away from each other. So the visual would be if there were two walls here, right? Two walls behind my feet, I would push those walls apart. So that creates space in the belly, creates the ability to lift the back. It strengthens the back, and it starts really working on the legs here. If your legs are here, you work here. You push the heels away from each other here. Okay, and so once this pose becomes, not easier, but becomes part of your routine, then you can do so many things here. We can bend forward in this pose. You can use it with twists, and you can do a laying down version. So today I'll show you the sitting up version, and in a future class we can do the twists and we can do the forward folds in all of these poses. Okay, so that was Upavistha Konasana. We come back to the center, and you can sit in your neutral pose, Dandasana. So neutral pose looks like this. All right, so just to recap, practice this Upavistha pose. Come out as wide as you can, right, until your inner thigh starts hurting. Making sure here that you're pushing through the heels, so the heels are extending out, pretending that you have that belt, or if you have the belt and you want to feel that sensation, use the belt. Push the heels out. Keeping the knees very straight here, make sure that the knees are not turning in and that you don't have the tendency of turning the feet in here. So feet point to the ceiling, kneecaps to the ceiling as well. And if you're not able to do that, then just bring the legs in a little bit and make sure that toes are pointing up, knees are pointing up, so that they're at no point are they rolling in here. All right, and softness in the bellies, eyes, ears, and throat. And then if you're feeling it in the lower back, you may lean against the wall and use a little bit of weight underneath your sit bones. So I hope that you enjoy this Upavistha pose and that you practice it daily until it becomes like a go-to pose, like a home pose for you. All right, we're going to move on to the second sitting pose that is incredibly important to a healthy yoga practice. So this one is called Virasana, or hero's pose. So for hero's pose, what I'm going to show you is how to do this pose in different steps depending on your flexibility. So if you are able to sit on a block, we'll do that. If it's too tight, just hang in there and I'll show you how to do it with the chair. Okay, so I'm going to start out with a little bit of height. So if you have blocks, go ahead and use the blocks. If you don't have blocks, books would work just fine. So I'm going to come into this Virasana pose and explain a little bit about this pose. So we come in here by coming in with both feet, and then you just sit here on the height. So this is Virasana. If this is absolutely impossible and there's so much tightness here in the foot, which usually is normal in the beginning, then I'll show you how to do this so that you don't hurt yourself. So come out. And when we come into this pose, my only warning and contraindication would be if there's any pain in the knee, do not proceed. So this is one of those poses where it doesn't give you much warning. The knees can just really get injured here, but it's also the pose that will heal your knees and your feet. So it's a very important pose. So we'll do it if your knees and thighs and feet are very tight, we'll do it one side at a time. So come into the pose, and I want to come into the pose very carefully, and I just bring one leg back, and then I have my left leg first, okay, so left leg and right leg forward, and then you can eventually stretch the right leg and have the left leg in Virasana first. So you would practice here, and if this height is too much, then you can start removing the height as you're able to handle the stretch on your feet. Okay, make sure that this foot never comes out like this. Okay, so a lot of kids, including my kids, they sit like this. And so I always remind them to flip their feet. So make sure that you're not turning the foot out that can really hurt your knees. So keep the foot pointed back and front leg straight. Okay, and as you're able to, you remove the height. And you start receiving that length in the quad. And you practice like this. So about a minute on each side. Once you're finished, to get out, you come out of this Virasana and you bring the leg in and then come out. Or you can just crawl forward. And so same thing with the other side. Use the amount of blocks that you need. So left leg straight, right leg bent. So we would sit Upavistha, then in Virasana for a few breaths, a few minutes. So each side, and then go ahead and come out. And then you can try both legs here. So bring the legs in and bring them out into Virasana. And I want to have my knees come in together, feet pointing back. And you sit here in this pose. Okay, so start with one leg at a time and then do it with both legs. So I can't stress enough, this length here in the quad will inform almost every other yoga pose. And we slowly achieve this length by sitting here in Virasana. We start getting the length in the front of the foot that will help you. And if you're looking to improve your back bends, in back bends you need a lot of length here in the quad, and you need this length in the very top of the quad near the groin. And so without this length in your back bends, you just really need that flexibility of your back, and usually it's the wrong kind of flexibility. So the more you practice this pose, the more you'll improve back bends as well. So when we're not going to do this, I'll just show you this part of Virasana. So as you start coming back and doing the laying down version of this pose, you see the amount of length that you're creating here. So this comes, and then eventually when you go all the way down and lay in the ground, you tuck the pelvis, creating that maximum length here. And at that point, it will really help you to improve in the back bending poses. Okay, so once you're finished here, come out. So these are poses that you add. You can add before you start your standing poses or your other poses, or you can do a whole week of just these sitting poses. You can add Virasana. It's incredible for digestion. It's a great pose to soothe the nervous system. So you can sit here in Virasana whenever you need to sit and read a book, or you can sit and watch a show on TV or wait for something. You can bring a block, sit in Virasana, and start really receiving that the benefit from the pose until you're able to sit lower and lower, eventually with your hips, sit bones on the ground. So if you have any questions about Virasana, I put more links in the description of this video where you can look up more details on Virasana and how important it is to start a regular practice of this pose. All right, so we have Upavistha Konasana with the legs out. Then we have this Virasana pose. It helps circulation in the legs and, like we said, digestion, all of these things. And that's why we always, when we do it one leg at a time, we start with the left leg in Virasana, helping that descending colon, we massage the left side first. So really helping digestion. And the third most important pose to just establish that really healthy practice would be Baddha Konasana, and I'll show you what that looks like. So Baddha Konasana is like this. Okay, so if you come to a sitting position and you bring, so first what you're going to do is you're going to close the knee here. So close the knee and bring the legs down. Okay, so here's Baddha Konasana. We're in a very tight body. Okay, so tight hips here. We have the knees above the hips. We have the feet together, heels are together, and you bring those heels as close as you can to your body here. So when this happens, right, when we have this much space, I'm going to sit on about this much space. Because if I have my knees higher than my hips, just this, the gravity of the pose like this, it will never allow these hips to kind of become more flexible and the knees to come down to the ground. So what I want to do here is really refrain from putting any pressure on the tops of the knees and push the knees down. And I'm going to add a little bit of height. So I know this is so common. I see this so much in yoga classes and yoga pictures of someone meditating like this. So if you want to, start learning this pose so that you can use it in your meditation practice or in, so many practice that poses that need this flexibility in the hip, I'll show you how to practice to get there safely. So come out of pose here, and we're going to add that amount of height underneath the hips. So I'll give you a sideways view here. So when I elevate my hips, I also have to elevate my heels. So I will use, let me stand back here. So I'm going to elevate the heels, and we're going to use a belt here too. So the belt is optional. The height underneath the hips is not. Okay, so place some height underneath the hips, and I'll show you why we need the heel support. So here I have my feet on a horizontal plane, and I have this kind of angle here, my legs, and my feet are in a horizontal plane here. What the improvement that you see here is that the knees are now about the same level as my hips, right? They're not like this anymore. I can actually bring those legs down, but I don't want to add that stress in my knee by twerking the leg like this. So I add a little bit of height here, and now my feet are at the same kind of plane as my legs, so I keep my knees safe. So what will happen here sometimes is that you'll feel like you need to round the lower back. So again, I need to, untuck the pelvis a little bit here, and I can help that by using a belt. So I can use a belt, and I put it around my body and around the feet. All right, like this. And then I can sit here in this Baddha Konasana position where I have my knees at the same or lower level than my hips. And if I am on a height, I would just raise my heels up a little bit. Okay, and then I can work here. So same concept as we had when we had both legs out in the first pose, Upavistha Konasana. I want to really, if I had a belt here around my knee, I would be trying to break that belt, pushing both knees away, away from the center, making these knees longer. And I never want to apply pressure on the knee and push it down. You could apply pressure here, right at the hips, and push this down. All right, so here we have Baddha Konasana, also a great pose to sit anywhere, anytime. You can even eat dinner sitting here. So you can lay against the wall. You can do this one at any time. So these sitting poses are, you can be building towards a healthy yoga practice, and you can be doing these on your time off. You don't necessarily have to be practicing yoga to practice these poses, but it'll give you lots of benefits towards your practice, towards digestion, more mobility in the feet, in the hips, strength in the back. It helps you lift the spine and stay strong in the spine. So these are really, really important poses to include in your daily routine if you can. So I'm trying to keep this class short, this class under 30 minutes, so that you can just use this information and practice it throughout the week. So hopefully these have been helpful. How to sit in these three help you with your practice. So Baddha Konasana is, it informs so many standing poses, but essentially, our basic poses like Trikonasana, Virasana Konasana that are really great standing poses. When you have or tree pose, when you have an open Baddha Konasana, you can start really getting the benefits from the other poses too. So, all right, if you have any last minute questions, let me know and I can hopefully address them for you. If not, we'll go over our three poses one more time. So Upavistha, work with pushing the heels away from the body. Stand straight, use a height if you need it, and breathe here for 3 breaths. Softening the eyes, the ears, and the throat. After 3 breaths, go ahead and bring the legs together to neutral position, Dandasana. Take 1 breath and come into your hero's pose or Virasana if you need a little bit of a height. Underneath your sit bones, go ahead and use that. Release the belly, the eyes, the ears, and the throat. And take a few breaths here. You can add weights on your Virasana. All right, and if you sit in this pose, once you find that place where your knees aren't hurting, your ankles aren't hurting, you can really start feeling how soothing it is to the nervous system. Just to sit in Virasana, take a few breaths, and just receive that restorative aspect of the pose. Once you're finished with Virasana, come out carefully so that you're not turning the feet out. And come into your neutral pose. And then we'll finish off with Baddha Konasana. So, if you need it, sit on a height. You can sit against the wall if that makes it a little easier. Untuck your pelvis by removing the flesh of the back away. And then bring the heels as close as you can to the body. And sit here in Baddha Konasana in a way that your knees are not higher than your hips. So knees are lower than the hips. And then lift the chest here. Press the heels towards each other. So make the quads very long and then make the bottom leg very short. So push those heels together and then lengthen from the groin to the knee. All right, so I hope that you have time to practice these and you find more information on the links that I put below in the description for you. And the last thing that I'll do is if you're very, very tight and there's no way that your feet can get into this hero's pose Virasana, the second one, I'll show you how to do that with the chair. So this you can do while at work, if you have an office kind of job where you're sitting on the chair. So here, if you're extremely tight, of course, making sure that you don't turn the foot out to do this. Just turn the foot in like this, right? In towards the medial part. And you start here, one leg. Okay, as you gain a little flexibility, you can use a block. And a little less. So here you're removing the weight of the body onto your feet and just allowing it to stretch. And it may cramp, it may really hurt, it may be super tight, but you start here and then you can just lift. You don't have to As you progress, so it takes a couple months, especially if you're doing it every day. You can take a little break if it starts getting way too sore, but this is how you would start the Virasana. And then after it becomes, almost painless being here like this on the chair, then you can move down to the floor with blocks underneath your seat. So you would go from this, and you can already feel the length in the quad here, making sure that you have zero pain in the knee. If there's pain in the knee, reduce the height there under your feet, or, we'd have to think of other ways that you can do this, but it has to be pain-free on the knees. The ankles will hurt, the thighs will stretch. So after the chair, you would come here and work like this. Okay. All right, so I hope that you love these and see you next Monday. Thank you for your comments, and check the links below if you'd like more information on these poses, and let me know how your week goes and how your practice of these standing poses go. Thank you. Bye.